Hello friends, so welcome to this lecture on overview of Azure policies. So before digging into the Azure policies or getting an overview, we need to understand one thing, whether the policies are created by the government or the policies are created by the organization. The main aim behind is getting a good governance or getting a good control over the organization resources. So in that case, that is the main purpose behind the Azure policies or behind the policies in general. And from a organization perspective, why the governance is important or what is governance? Or you can say IT governance in an enterprise or an organization is basically needed to control the IT strategy, security strategy, or it could be a business strategy. Basically, governance, it helps or enables the organization to optimize the use of technology which is there within the organization so that it can use the best possible way to use the technology, right, or obtain the best of it. So that is why governance is very important. And when we talk about the Azure policy, good IT governance can be obtained with the help of Azure policy, which involves, planning your initiatives or setting priorities on a strategic level to help or prevent if there could be any issues or to prevent future issues. And this basically vital need where the Azure policy comes in. So if we'll talk in language of Azure, Azure policy like other services, Azure policy is also a service within the Azure which you can search within the portal that a company can use basically to create, assign and manage the policy definitions. And what is policy definition? See, policy definition is about the enforcement of rules over the resources like your virtual machines or your storage account or your SQL server or your key vault, so that all those resources which are used by the organization they stay compliant with your corporate standards or within the service level agreement. In order to understand, let's say for example there is a certain regulation PCI DSS, or let's say there is a uh, HIPAA compliance which says that all the data which is stored at rest should be encrypted. So in that case, you can create policies. Let's say that all the data which is lying within the your disk or your storage account should be encrypted. So whenever somebody is trying to create a let's say or store a data which is non-encrypted, the alert will be generated. Or let's say there is a requirement from an organization perspective that okay, whenever the virtual machine is created, it should have this base CPU or should have this much capacity of graphic card, so that all you can achieve with the help of policy definitions, or you can enforce the rules. Or let's say take the example of GDPR, that okay, you can have the policy within the Azure that okay, there should be no resource created outside the European region, so that you can enforce with the help of policy. So don't worry, we'll have a demo depending on the location based policy as well. So in the demo you'll be having much more clarity. And Azure policy is a service that basically runs hourly and evaluates your resources to make sure that okay, they are compliant with your policies or the organization policies. All these policies which you want to create, you can use or you can create with the help of Azure portal, or you can modify the JSON, import the policies using Bash, PowerShell, or API, so that you can control or stay compliant with the organization or corporate standards and you are under the service level agreements. Another example is like there might be a DevOps team within your organization. So in that case, you want that okay, DevOps teams to create only resources which you want them to create, and they should maintain accordingly. For example, in case of DevOps team, I want that okay, they should not be able to, no one should be able to create resources within the using the using the classic subscription, right? So in that case, we can control with the help of Azure policies. like non-encrypted volumes are not allowed. Like I gave the example of HIPAA. So all these things we can achieve with the help of Azure policies, and we can get alert if there is any definition from the Azure policies. So we'll dig deeper into each and every concept, that okay, how you create policy, assign policies, remediate. So we'll discuss in the upcoming lecture about the Azure policies and each component. So in general, just to have a clarity that okay, what is the difference between the role-based access control and the Azure policy? See, role-based access control, we have studied about the three pillars where we define the security principle, role definition, and the scope. So role-based access control, if you remember, that basically controls the user action, that okay, what kind of role we have assigned to a user, depending on which he can work within a subscription or a resource group or within a particular resource. So that is where we are controlling the user action. For example, the user is not allowed to create a SQL server in a resource group. That is one example. And the Azure policy, on the other hand, basically enforce rules on a resource properties. Like here we are, enforcing rules, let's say on a subscription or on a particular, let's say, resource group. So in this case, what we are doing is we are enforcing rule on a resource properties during the deployment or the resources which already exist. So that is the main difference. Other thing is a role-based access control is basically an IAM tool or identity and access management. We are controlling the user behavior. And on the other hand, Azure policy is a governance tool. So example we gave for Azure policies, deploy all volume encryptions with the customer managed keys. So no volume should be encrypted with the Microsoft managed key. Only the customer managed keys could be used. There might be some regulation like GXP or other, which have certain stringent requirements that okay, only customer managed encryption keys should be used. So that you too can achieve with the help of Azure policy. And that is the organization standard, or you can say that organization has to obey with the regulations. So in that case, we can achieve with the help of Azure policy so that there is no deviation. Azure policy comes in two ways. In case of pricing, free tier, that you can only enforce policies on the future resources which you will be deploying, and the other is standard tier, that okay, you can enforce them on the existing resources as well, so that you can understand your compliance state or the holistic view about the compliance. So this is, we have already discussed that okay, RBAC is an IAM tool or Azure policy in turn is a governance tool. So this is it friends in this lecture. In this lecture we discussed about the overview of Azure policy, that okay, what it is, how we can have different Azure policies, but we discussed about the role definition, and then we discussed about the DevOps team and the HIPAA example wherein all data should be encrypted at rest. And then is the difference between the role-based access control and the Azure policy. So thank you, friends. Thank you for watching this lecture. Meet you in the next lecture. Thank you.